Welcome to the Jboy Show, hosted by Jake Crain, the fastest growing sports show in the nation.
I'm Coach Hugh Freeze.
This is Super Bowl champion Brandon Graham.
Hey, this is DJ Shockley, and you're watching.
And thanks for watching the Jboy Show.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. Going to get to former 247 Sports and Rivals.com SEC reporter Justin Hokanson in a minute. A great interview. We cover a variety of topics all through the SEC and talk a little basketball. And we talk a little about my monologue today. And it's something that here at the Jboy Show, if you've been following us, we don't get political. And I made that decision before I even started the show. You know, I look out in the landscape and you have big companies that are all the way on one side, other ones that are all the way on the other side. And there's not a lot of people that are right down that middle lane. And if you look at recent polling, I believe it's 89% of Americans want politics out of their sports and entertainment. And over this past year and COVID and the pandemic has really, you know, shown you, some of these sports journalists and people that cover how much of an agenda that they have outside of covering sports. And I have no problem with people having opinions politically. I have opinions politically, but my job is not to tell you my political opinions. We don't get the amount of downloads and traffic and exposure we get because people care about what I think, a guy that was a player and a coach, thinks about politics. And, you know, with my friends and stuff like that, I can talk about it and it's fine. But when we start bleeding it into sports, something that actually brings us together, even if you're on opposing teams, just think about it, sitting in the stadium, watching your favorite team, sitting in the arena, watching your favorite team. Hell, sitting on the pitch, watching your favorite team in the stands, watching the pitch. If your team does something good and you celebrate with strangers you don't even know that have the same team colors that you have on, you don't care about their political affiliation. That has nothing to do with what's going on or why you're there. Sports brings us together, especially, you know, you look at college football down in the Southeast. It's a fabric of our society. You're sitting in that stadium watching your team play, and one of your guys breaks off a big run for the touchdown. It doesn't matter if you support a certain bill or you think in a certain way along a party line. For those 2.5, 3 hours, that's an escape from that. And what worries me is not that players can be outspoken. I mean, they should have the right to say what they want, but that a lot of people at major places that cover sports act more like political agenda drivers than somebody covering the sport. And there's been a lot of people that got exposed, especially at certain places, that I don't know if they'll ever get their reputation back. And in today's society, it's so divisive. The political landscape is so divisive. We need sports to help bring us together, because that's the goal, is to come together, to be able to have different ideas that you can share and bring them together without any problems. But if we start letting the divisiveness of politics bleed into sports, even as much as we have now, I feel like we're going to ruin one of the very few elements of society left that can actually bring us together. You look at some of these rivalries, Auburn, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, all these, Oklahoma, Texas. I'm sick of watching sports, and half of it, whether it be highlights or whatever, is all about political narratives. Cover the damn game. Stop talking about Bills and start talking about the Buffalo Bills. I don't understand it. It's not good for us. And if you want to talk politics, go to a political channel. There's a million of them now. But for the people that when they want to hear about sports, they just want to hear about sports, we got you. But for every other place in society that is trying to use sports to drive political agendas, whatever they may be, stop doing it. You're poisoning the well. It's one of the few things we have left. And if we let that go, I don't know what's going to happen. But I can promise you this. Every time you turn into the Jboy Show, we're not talking about left, right, middle, up and down. No. The only thing we're talking about left is zone to the left. The only thing we're talking about right is power to the right. You're going to get sports from us. And I wish a lot of other people would take that lesson as well. Let's get to Justin Hokanson. Let's continue to win the water cooler. All right, everybody, on to the interview portion. Very excited to welcome a guy we've had on. Love talking ball with him, not just Auburn, but SEC in general and kind of the landscape of college sports, which is absolutely wild right now. Former 247 Sports and Rivals.com SEC reporter, Justin Hokanson, one of my fan favorites. Hoke, what's up, buddy?
Not much, man. How are you?
Doing good. You know, in another day, another dollar, and looking at what is a ever-changing college landscape, looking at teams, you know, tweeting out the teams they're playing in 2096, getting excited about that as well. But now doing good, man. How are you?
Doing well, man. Enjoying the summer. Glad to be here.
Definitely. And, you know, I want to start, Hoke, with something that, you know, it's not really team related, but it's fan related, you know, community related. And that's getting back to full capacity, getting people back tailgating, because it's a fabric of society, especially down here where we are. How important is it to you in the grand scheme of things, getting this 2021 season and getting back to some normalcy and doing what we normally do in the fall, filling up the stadiums, buying hot dogs and stuff like that, because it helps out everybody?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, obviously, I live in Auburn, Alabama, so I know for a place like Auburn that is so built around, and a lot of these college towns that are so built around, you know, athletics and fans coming into games. It was a really tough deal and a bad deal when that was taken away. I mean, so many of these places are not big cities that'll just thrive anyway. And of course, the big cities got hit as well. But these college towns, when you take away football crowds and basketball crowds, and they rely on those weekends to make so much of their money, it was a really unfortunate deal, really bad deal for them. And I think that they're obviously really, really excited to get people back in, keeps people employed in these towns and keeps these establishments going. But it's huge, man. I mean, college athletics is about the experience, the atmosphere, the camaraderie. That's what it is. It's what separates it from everything else. And so when you take that away, it's just a different animal. So when you see, I mean, gosh, you know, look at that Arkansas regional, that home run that guy hit in the eighth inning, that video that went viral. I mean, that's Arkansas baseball, college baseball. And I'm thinking, when would a college baseball video, let alone, you know, an Arkansas college baseball video get 2 million? It's just a home run.
Yeah.
Get 2 million views because of the crowd, because of the reaction. And it was a combination of the reaction was insane, but I think it was also, you haven't seen that in so long. And it was so exciting to people to see it. And so it's just a huge deal. You see the video that's going viral, the Islanders national anthem last night, and the whole crowd singing it. And so, yeah, it's just massive getting these crowds back. And I wondered, you know, going in, I wondered what the pandemic was going to do. I wondered if it was going to push people away, if people were going to go, well, I've got a nice TV and I've got a patio and ticket prices are going up and gas is. I thought maybe there'd be people that would go, they would have pushed them further away. They have a year removed and they'd say, well, I don't need it. And I think some of that probably happened. But what I think the vibe I get now is actually having this conversation last night. I think more people are going to miss it. And I think there's going to be more people that are going to come back and go, but I really missed it. I missed it. I missed tailgating. I missed it also. So I think you're going to see just a massive rise and a back to normal really quickly in tailgates and buying tents and renting them out and doing all that. And so I kind of thought in the beginning it would go the other way. But now when you see the excitement, I think people are going to get back real quickly to wanting to get back to going versus bailing out altogether. So it's exciting.
Yeah. The electricity is going to be back. I mean, it's natural human condition and reaction to want something that you can't have or want something that you've had that's gotten taken away. And I think it's going to come back like a tidal wave tenfold once we get into the season, not just from an attendance standpoint in the stadium, but from outside the stadium as well. I think it's going to be the best tailgating season ever. And in my monologue, Hoke, and we'll get to the nuts and bolts of the SEC and talk a little football and basketball. But in my monologue, I talked about the need, and we don't get political here, but we can make the statement of to keep politics out of sports. And to me, sports is a great unifier. Whether you're on one side of the aisle or the other, For that 3 hours inside that stadium, if your team scores a touchdown and you high five the person next to you, you don't care what their political affiliation is. It's almost one of the only hubs we have that can kind of take that away and bring people together, especially in the society we have now. I mentioned some of the numbers, looking at what people want in their sports, and they don't want politics. They really don't want politics and entertainment as well. How important do you think it is? And really, to me, it's the people that cover it, to be honest with you, because again, you can voice your opinion on what you believe, you're a player, whatever, but it seems to me like a lot of people that cover it are trying to blend CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC into ESPN and all these other ones. And to me, we don't want that. Keep that out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think if you're in it and you're covering it, unfortunately, it's happened more and more the past probably 2 years, but you just can't really get into it. If you're legit covering it for a TV station or newspaper or website, and people are relying on you for that sports information, I think you can't get into looking like you're for one side or the other in terms of politics. COVID exposed a lot of that because it intertwined all that. It was COVID and lockdowns, which involved canceling athletics. And is that right or not? And so it made people that cover sports have to delve into a little bit of, well, then is it smart for lockdown to happen? Well, now you're getting into whether people agree with lockdowns, and then you're talking about, well, should we do testing or not? So it combined those in a very odd way, and it just it made people choose sides in a way. And I think a lot of people that cover the sport, instead of just saying, I'm not an expert, I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to report with no expertise, you had a lot of people that formed opinions quickly and took sides and say, well, lockdowns are smart, or lockdowns are not good, or we should be playing, or we shouldn't be playing. And it exposed a lot of those writers and journalists. It was a weird year. It was a tough year, I think, for a lot of those people covering sports, but there's some out there that were really, I think, egregious in taking sides. And it's just not a smart thing to do. You're right about when you're at an event, nobody cares. I mean, if you're at a basketball game or football game and a touchdown is scored or a 3-pointer is made or whatever, a home run's hit, it doesn't matter. You're going to high five the person next to you. Who cares what their affiliation is? None of that matters. And so, much like sports and everything else, if people are left on their own, I think people get along. When you bring media and you bring journalists that have agendas into the mix, that's the kind of stuff that separates and divides. If you just put a bunch of people in a room together and just say, hey, we all love the same team, your politics are different than mine, but let's just hang out, it would go a lot better.
Yeah, because again, it's one thing talking about, a political thing and then talking about what the offense is going to do this year or this, that, and the other. And it just blows my mind how some of these, journalists, I don't consider myself a journalist. I'm just a guy that played and coached and now sits behind a microphone and tries to translate. But it's amazing. I wouldn't go ask a coal miner how to cook a 5-star meal from the school of cordon bleu. So why would I ask a sports reporter or whatever to try and change politics and intervene? And you said it, it's an agenda. It's an opportunity. And some people took it, ran with it. And I think at the end of the day, you're going to look back and realize that was probably a mistake. And I've got no problem with people having opinions or voicing their opinions. But when you're covering something like this and you're supposedly an expert on covering this, cover this, talk about this. That's what people want. If they want to talk politics, they can turn. There's other channels that do it. That's why I don't do it here. You have some that are all the way on one side, all the way on the other side, and it just divides. And I just wanted your opinion on that, Hoke, because as we get to some sort of normalcy this year, I'm interested to see how that group that kind of exposed themselves tries to rebound or steady the waters. Because again, once you open that box, you can't put it back. Yeah, you really can't. And it's so divisive today in society. But no, that's great stuff and good perspective there, Hoke. I know a ton of our audience agrees. And if our audience doesn't agree, let us know. That's the thing. There's no echo chamber here. This isn't groupthink. So again, you're allowed to have your opinion, but Hoke, yeah, go ahead.
Can I?
Yes,
one thing?
go ahead.
And I think the people that kind of tried to have an agenda. I mean, the great thing about America is you'll find out if people stop following you or they stop listening to what you have to say. That's the market. They decided that you're now not credible in their eyes, And so you made that decision. And so I think a lot of sports journalists are going to feel the same thing as cable news and news media has felt. And that is, you start taking sides and looking like you have an agenda, your credibility is going to be hurt forever. And so there's people I won't name, but there are sports journalists that I've seen. I don't think the reputation will ever be the same.
I agree.
And I think going in this year or next year, people that you might have in the past been like, oh, they're so-and-so from X newspaper and they're a national guy and I always listen. They're going to go, yeah, I don't care what he says anymore. Yep. And so they're going to find that out. They're going to see a different reaction from fans and all that, and they're just going to have to deal with it.
No, I agree. And again, you dig your hole. Sometimes you got to sit in it. But want to take 1 second to give a shout to our partners at Dynasty U. It's an unbelievable app. It's like LinkedIn for recruiting. If your son, daughter, if you're the guardian, even if you're the prospect and you're trying to get eyes on your ability to try and get a scholarship or get noticed or even to walk on, you need to download the Dynasty U app from the Google Play Store. Anywhere you get your apps, it's unbelievably easy. And like I always say, it's not smart to email the coach 30,000 times about how great your kid is. When you download this app, the coaches are able to download it. They're able to see it. It makes it more efficient for them. It's very concise, and you have a better chance of at least getting an answer, because this doesn't guarantee a scholarship. It doesn't guarantee a spot, but it guarantees that the tape doesn't lie, and the grades and the social media and all that stuff that's on there doesn't lie. And it gives your kid a chance to get in front of eyes that he wants to get in front of outside of going to camps and doing the other things. That's the Dynasty U app. It's free right now. You better get it while it's free, and you can get that wherever you get your app. We're here with former 247 Sports and Rivals.com SEC reporter Justin Hokanson. Excited to get on here. And now we'll switch gear to some ball here, and we'll start with college basketball. We talked about the transfer portal, Hoke. You look across the SEC, whether it's Auburn, whether it's Arkansas, you go down the list. LSU got a ton out of the portal. It's caused some interesting things. And one of the interesting dynamics was Desi Seals, a guy that was committed to Auburn, Arkansas transfer, ends up not coming to Auburn. There were some credits, academic issues, whatever you want to say, goes to Arkansas State. That leaves them with an extra spot on the roster, actually 2 extra spots. Hoke, your thoughts on that situation, and do you think Auburn fills one of those 2 scholarship spots going into this year?
Yeah, that was a bummer for Auburn. Desi Sills, I think, was a good fit. I think he had the kind of mentality that Bruce Pearl likes in terms of toughness and just being a gamer. He was a good 3-point shooter, which Auburn needs. That's they've got a lot of athletic ability, but then you lose Justin Powell, and who was their best 3-point shooter. They need that. And so that's probably, if I looked at Auburn and the moves that they're making and what they got going on next year, that's probably still the thing you're looking at now is going, okay, well, are they going to improve from the 3-point line? Because that's such an important part of what they do. So kind of a bummer to lose Desi Sills. Really no fault of Desi Sills. It was just a major that didn't transfer over. Why we got to this point and then it didn't work out, I don't know. It's just an unfortunate deal. And it's also unfortunate because you think about Trey Alexander and, where he's on board and then he leaves because he's wondering, okay, you're signing all these guys. And it was, Auburn, Auburn told him what they were going to do, but it is what it is. He wanted to go somewhere else. Well, now Desi's not even there. So I feel like, maybe you lost Trey Alexander now for
double whammy
for no particular reason. So kind of a bummer in that regard too. And he goes to Creighton, who had an unbelievable class. But as it regards to whether they'll fill the spot, I don't know. I don't think they have to, or I don't think they need to. I think if there's somebody out there that they think is worthy to fill the spot, I think they will. But I don't think there's any urgency or necessity on their part to fill it. If they got to go one down in terms of scholarship, I think they'll do it. I think they got a pretty deep team even without Desi. But he was a good fit. He's a good 3-point shooter. And you think about Trey Alexander, those 2 things, it is kind of a bummer. Auburn's done a great job in the transfer portal. It's just kind of a little ding at the end that doesn't negate what they've done and what kind of team they can have. I don't think, if you look at it this way, I don't think them losing Desi, it's hard for me to say that that's going to impact their wins and losses in the SEC. Maybe one, I could maybe a game and a half if you had to pick an over under, like how it might affect them, maybe depth or making a play here and there. I don't think it really will impact what they can do next year. it's just kind of a good player that you lost, and that kind of sucks.
Yeah, again, I kind of get that double whammy and stuff happens. And again, it's, it's interesting. It rarely happens that somebody commits and then something doesn't transfer over. Typically you have those ducks in a row, but it's a crazy deal, especially with this portal. Now looking on the other side of the state at Nate Oates, Hoka, I'm very interested to ask you this question. Coming off a big year, but you lose some guys you inherited at the end of the day. Herb Jones, Petty, you kind of go Alex Reese, guys like that. Going into this year, with some unproven guys, you do, Quinterly, chance come back. There's a couple other ones. They've obviously recruited well. Do you see it being another big year for Alabama this next year? Because if you look at the SEC, I mean, it's only getting better. It's the way they've recruited, and you look at the draft, it's not slowing down anytime soon. Do you think there's going to be kind of a fallback year for Alabama here? Because some people have them in the top 5, Oak.
Ooh, yeah, the expectations are certainly going to be, really, really high. I don't know. It's tough because I think they're obviously the talent's there. Burnett coming from Texas Tech, and then they have the freshman center that I can't remember his name off the top of my head. You probably know who I'm talking about. But the guy coming in. Yeah. So they've got some guys coming in that, if they live up to the billing, like Burnett was supposedly a big time player. If those guys live up to the billing and you get the same kind of production from the guards coming back, yeah, they're going to be really good. But they had an incredible season last year. I mean, it all came together. They hit a ton of threes. So I think really just the thing you got to factor in is they had a ton of experience last year as well. So when you lose a Herb Jones, who's the SEC Player of the Year, it was just kind of a Swiss Army knife, could do everything. John Petty played a ton of basketball. I think that's the question. How important last year was the experience, and can it be overcome with talent? And to me in basketball, I always like the experience, but top 5, that's high expectations. But yeah, with some of the big guys they got coming in, if the guard play is still there the way it was last year, they're going to be super, super dangerous. And the other thing is they played really good defense last year. Yeah. So you lose Herb Jones and Petty, who even had length. How does that translate? Is their defense the same? So there's some questions. I don't know that top 5, I mean, they made the Sweet 16. They got bounced. They did win the SEC. Top 5 seems like a lot when you lose what they did. Mm-hmm. But the talent's there. I think it's just, can you make up for the experience, and can you play the same level of defense? I think that's the question mark. You lose Herb Jones. Can you play the same level of defense that you did last year? And that, to me, that kind of remains to be seen. We don't know. I mean, we'll see. But they're going to be really good. Yeah, they're definitely one of the favorites, if not the favorite, to win the league.
Yeah, well, I mean, their ability last year on defense to turn defense into offense really quickly is one of the reasons they were able to sustain so much success. And, Herb was a big part of that. I love the Gurley pickup for them. I think it's a good fit. I just question inside, talk about depth and length inside. You look around the league, I don't know how much of that they have. But shifting to football, Hoke, going into this year, I want to start in the East. Obviously, Georgia is the huge favorite. I've picked them to win the national championship. What's your thoughts on Georgia this year? And you know me, I haven't been one of these guys saying that Georgia's going to win it, for the past, 3 or 4 years. I haven't been doing this long enough to be able to do that. But do you see Georgia's best chance and Kirby Smart's best chance to usurp Nick Saban? Is it this year?
Ooh, it's as good of a chance as they've had. That's for sure. They obviously had opportunity, blew a couple of games against Alabama over the last few years, that they were in good position, and they're in great position now. So, and you got Alabama obviously with a new quarterback. So I think the opportunity's there. You got JT Daniels coming back that has a lot of experience, and the high hopes there. And so, yeah, I think Georgia's in as good of a position as probably you're gonna be at any point to beat a Nick Saban Alabama program. It's hard to imagine. They've got a great team. Alabama's got a new quarterback and replacing some people. And so it's hard to imagine you're going to get a better opportunity. If that makes sense. So I think there's a lot of pressure on Georgia, especially because that's what you're hearing. You've had good teams from Georgia the last couple of years of good recruiting, but you haven't had this kind of talk going into the season. It's been Georgia's good. Florida's going to be good. Alabama's the favorite. But there's this talk now, the last probably month, of people coming out like yourself and people that have a microphone and saying, this is Georgia's best shot, or if Georgia doesn't win an SEC title this year, when will it happen? Or if they don't win a national championship, when will it happen? Those kind of comments are now happening. That's the kind of stuff that then, whether Kirby's listening to it or not, or whether the players hear it, it doesn't really matter, because there's going to be the outside pressure and the people that go to games and the boosters, all this, that they're hearing it. So if it doesn't happen, there's going to be a lot of disappointment, because their expectations are probably higher than they ever have been. So it's going to be an interesting year to see what they do and how fans and people react if it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen again, you say, goodness, I mean, if we can't do it this year, when are we going to do it? It's a valid question. It's like, well, I guess, and you're probably thinking like everybody else, but yeah, I would say it's a great opportunity. I mean, they're definitely the favorite in the East, and then if they get there, they've got a lot of ability. But I think the outside pressure is interesting. It's the first year that there's really a lot of outside pressure. Like, y'all better do it this year, yeah. or I don't know. That's kind of the first time we're really hearing that talk, legitimate talk.
Yeah, and it's funny because at the same time, Georgia probably has the best team they've had in a long time. I look at the rest of the East. I'm not huge on Florida this year. I've made that known. Talked about that with Doring. I think Emory Jones is going to be a good player. I don't think he's going to be nearly what they need. And up front on the offensive line, defense is still a big question mark. But while Georgia is in great position, the rest of the East looks wide open to me, Hoke. And if I'm a Kentucky or I'm a Missouri, I don't think you can count on South Carolina and Tennessee and Vandy is what it is. Is it time to make a move? Do you see somebody kind of making a move over Florida, or do you think we're just going to get the rinse and repeat? I know Florida won the East last year, but how it's been going, Georgia wins it, Florida's right underneath.
Yeah, I think the way it's set up right now is Georgia, Florida, and then Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, and then we'll see what Shane Beamer can do. So I think you kind of have three tiers at the moment in the East. I mean, it's hard for me to. I like what Dan Mullen's done, and I'm curious to see. What he does with Emory Jones, because I have a ton of respect for what Dan Mullen can do with quarterbacks. And I'm really curious to see, can he take Emory Jones, who people probably just regard as a pretty good athlete, could he make him a really good quarterback? I mean, if he can, a lot of ability. Like, if that kid becomes a pretty good passer with his athletic ability, that could be intriguing. But I do think it's kind of three tiers: Georgia, Florida, and then Missouri, Kentucky, and Tennessee. It's kind of who can step up there. You like what Missouri did last year. Kentucky's always been tough under Stoops. They do a good job. And then I think Beamer is trying to get into that mix sometime soon, but we'll see. So it's kind of three tiers to me. But Georgia, Florida, to me, are set up so well from coaches, recruiting, and everything that go NFL players the last couple of years. I think they're in a pretty good standing to be 1-2. I don't see another program overtaking them anytime soon. I think, if anything, Georgia and Florida, I mean, if they keep recruiting the way they do and winning the way they are the past couple of years, to me, they could just solidify their spots as 1-2. I don't see anybody jumping up there with them.
Yeah, I got a feeling Kentucky's going to be in that 2 spot, Hoke. I just got my spidey senses are tingling on that one. We'll see. And again, look, we're not going to know until we see it, but Kentucky's actually going to throw the forward pass this year. I can't believe it. Somebody slipped him the piece of paper. But looking over to the West, we know what Alabama's reloading with. We know the talent that Bryce Young has, the talent that they've signed on the offensive line with the early enrollees. And I've asked about kind of the second tier under them, and I want to get to that. But from what you've seen in Brian Harsin, what they've gotten out of the portal, it seems like they've snatched 15 DBs out of the portal. How do you think he's done so far in his limited time as the head coach at Auburn?
I think he's done fine. I mean, I think the most important thing for a first-year coach is about culture. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that you can fix immediately. You can't always fix your roster immediately, but you can certainly come in and start to build the culture immediately. And everything I see from that regard has been good. And I think he probably, I think about Brian Harsin. I'm not sure he gets enough credit for what he did at Boise State and his record there because of the coaches they had before Brian Harsin, and Boise was winning before him, and he kind of kept it rolling. I guess we'll find out. We'll find out what he can do in the SEC, but I do find it interesting. I think people are underestimating or undervaluing a little bit what he did at Boise, which is really, really impressive. I mean, he won championships. He won a ton of ball games. So, we'll see how it translates over. But I do think maybe he deserves a little more credit for being a coach that can win and that knows what it takes to win a championship. That's what I see in what he's trying to build the culture at Auburn. As far as the roster, I think he's done as good as he can do in the transfer portal. I mean, I think Donovan Coffin was a big time get. Yeah. And then I think he filled in some other needs, but I see Coffin's a guy that is one of their better players now. And that's huge. And he's got some pieces. It's just that, the offensive line, there's some things that I'm not sure he's going to be able to fix. And we'll just have to see how it develops as far. I mean, you got the second hardest schedule in the country, most people say. What a task to come to Auburn your first year, and people are saying you have maybe one of, if not the hardest schedule in the country. It's going to be tough. So I think what Auburn fans should do, and people that follow SEC football, and if you want to be fair, is you need to pick out a few things, whether for Auburn, you need to pick out a few things that you're looking for to whether they improve or not, because that schedule's brutal. If they, they could go 7-5, and I think a lot of people would be like, oh yeah, good hire, Carson, 7-5. But there's a lot of things that you got to take into account there. So I think you want to take wins and losses, that's fine, but that won't be the whole story for Auburn this year. It'll be, how do they recruit throughout the season? Pick out some guys, and development-wise, what does Bo Nix look like? How do they use the tight end? There's some things I think you can look for. Hey, what's Smoke Monday? A lot of potential. Does he progress? Does he look like a good player? Watch on some development issues, because you're projecting down the road on Brian Harsin. So wins and losses is one thing, but I think also looking at progress with some players, competitiveness. Don't get blown out by Georgia. Don't get blown out by Alabama. Some of those things that you can also look at and say, I think he's got going the right direction, or whoa, he got a wake up call this year. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. I think they're poised for a good team. The potential's there. I think it could kind of go either way with that schedule. I mean, I think there's going to probably be 3 or 4 games easily with them that could go either way. And if they somehow find a way to win those games, think back to Gus's first year. You find a way to beat Mississippi State. You find a way to beat Texas A&M. There were some games right there that easily could have gone the other way, but they didn't. And so can Harsin do that? Can he be in some of these close games that you're going to have at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, some competitive Arkansas, but probably will be competitive-ish? Can they make those plays in a new culture and win some of those games? If he can, he could go 8 wins, which I think a lot of Auburn fans would be happy about.
Yeah, and again, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And the roster rebuild he's having to do, especially on the offensive line, is one of epic proportions in what he was left. But it is what it is, and they don't make excuses over there. Hoke, a couple more questions. I'm going to let you ride, brother. Is Jimbo Fisher building a monster at Texas A&M right now?
It looks that way. I mean, we've always looked at Texas A&M and said, the facilities are there. The money's there. The commitment's there. Kevin Sumlin just wasn't able to do it. And that's why they went out and paid Jimbo the big bucks, because he can recruit and he can develop quarterbacks. And so he's, recruiting has taken off to a new level for them. And so, they've got that's a program kind of, it makes me think of a little bit different, but it makes me think of what Alabama was before Nick Saban. You're looking at it and you're going, they've got everything there. The passion, the history, the commitment from the fans. You just need somebody to bring it all together. And that's the key. And I think Jimbo, obviously being around Nick all that time and running at Florida State and running these I think he knows how to do that in terms of what it's going to take in the SEC to win, like building a top to bottom. Everybody needs to be involved. Here's what it's going to take to beat Alabama. That kind of thinking, I think he's got that. Jimbo's a little crazy, but I think he's bringing it together. He's bringing all those facilities and money and passion. He's bringing it all together, and they're recruiting like crazy. So it's just going to come down to living up to expectations, which is kind of always been the thing with A&M probably the last 6, 7, 8 years. Like there's talent at certain spots, but they lacked, maybe a defensive line or whatever it is. So to me, it's probably been that. Hey, can A&M put a defensive line out there that can win a championship? That's, if I had to point to something, I feel like they've had players all over the place. If they put a defensive line out there that could compete with Alabama and Georgia, then watch out. Yeah. I mean, Alabama goes to College Station, so you've got an opportunity.
Yeah. Mike Elko, to me, has done one of the best jobs. They finished #1 in the SEC in defense last year. Like you said, they've recruited at a high clip, and Jimbo's built that thing from the line of scrimmage to the defensive side to the offensive side. And if King or Calzada can be the guy at quarterback, and not lose them games and just give them enough, I think they could be really scary and win a couple games that people don't think they would. Last year with Kellen Mond, we all know that situation and how good that offensive line was, but it'll be interesting to see this. I do got to ask you, Hoke, last question. If I gave you Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, Mike Leach and Mississippi State, or Arkansas and Sam Pittman, and for the next 2 years, 3 years, you had to pick one of those teams to have the most success, who was Justin Hokanson picking?
Kiffin.
Nice. I agree. Expound.
Yeah.
Expound.
Now, if you told me if you said 5 years or something, I don't know, because Kiffin. So who knows what will happen? I don't even know if Kiffin will be there in 5 years. But over the next 2 years, yeah, I mean, he's such a good. He's got so much energy. He can recruit. The offense is going to be there. They've got a lot of buzz about them in terms of getting players, and I think they're probably in the best position to make some noise. I like what Pittman did at Arkansas last year. He made them competitive. But if I said ceiling, Ole Miss has got the highest ceiling of those three programs and those three coaches. They've got the highest ceiling for sure. They're projected fourth in the West right there. LSU, I don't see it. They could finish third. LSU will be good, but I don't see why Ole Miss, LSU, and Auburn aren't I don't see any of those three teams being any better than the other to that degree this year. I think Matt Corral coming back, I would take Kiffin. If he keeps the offense rolling the way he has, I have a tough schedule at Alabama, at Auburn, but LSU and A&M are at home.
Yeah.
So what if they pull off one of those? What if they pull off A&M or LSU? So I would take, if you said over the next 2 years, I'm taking Kiffin and Ole Miss because they can score, and if you can score, kind of anything's possible.
Yeah, and there's no way they can be as bad as they were on defense last year. They've added some guys they had to. All he needs is a couple stops to have success. And you look at Braylon Sanders, Aboa, the rest of those guys over there. And offensively with Lane Kiffin, you never really worry about it because he knows the difference. But Hoke, great stuff, man, as usual. Going to get you back on soon. Tell everybody where they can find you on social media because you'll throw some tweets out there, man, and it's some good stuff.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, man. At Jay Hokanson, or actually _ Jay Hokanson. We'll have a good time, man. Congratulations on the show, and keep up the good work.
Definitely, man. Well, Hoke, I appreciate it, buddy. I'm excited to get this season. I'm ready for some Hoke's takes during the season. They're always great stuff. The audience always loves it. We appreciate you guys joining us at home. Subscribe, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go to the jboyshow.com. Get some of that merchandise. Got some big announcements coming up. We got SEC Media Day right around the corner, and we're going to be in there like swimwear. It's been another edition of the Jboy Show with Justin Hokanson, and we're gone.
The Jboy Show is produced by David Cohn, Technical Director Dave Hammock, Creative Director David Culbertson, Audio Engineer Feyzan Shareef, Production Assistants Blaine Crain and Kyle Orr, Executive Producers Jake Crain, Vince Thompson, Steve Chamberlain, and David Cohn. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and visit our website, thejboyshow.com, for updates regarding our newest apparel and merch designs. Win the water cooler with the Jboy Show.